Okay, so I'm just going to launch into this panel. I don't like this very much. I'm going to take this. I'll stand here with you guys. Okay, we're talking about digital art. I'm going to start with you, Jameis, because you actually are in the digital art space. What is going on right now? Can you give everybody, you were saying you vacillate between being like a con artist and, you say it.
Well, I mean, it's, I've been in the game for long enough.
Great.
That, you know, you have those moments where people think you're a genius, and you have those moments where people think you are a scam artist.
And where are we right now? Are we in genius mode or scam artist mode?
We are descending into scam artist mode.
Got it.
Very, very, very deep. I remember very vividly the moment I went back to my hometown in 2018, and one of my good friends was like, well, I guess that was a whole scam. And I remember that I was the guy that was always talking about the future and why crypto is so important. And I remember that moment just being like, I'm going to not talk about this for about a year. I'm going to cut it off for a little bit. But I think there's so much below the visual layer that everyone gets, right? There is deep, deep innovations in technology. My background is in machine learning. I majored in math and computer science. I don't think this is a fad.
Okay.
And I think that you see a lot of bad stuff. I mean, it's very similar to like spam in the 90s with email. And no one knew that what was happening, right? Pets.com is worth $500 million. Like, what's going on?
Cute sock puppet.
And I think it's very similar. And I think that it's a paradigm shift. I think it will connect individuals without intermediaries, particularly people in Africa, women, artists. Pleasr DAO, the majority of artists that we've purchased art from have been female. And it connects buyers and artists directly.
Which is very cool. So the panel is about how art can be a force for good. Art has really been a force for good for eternity, pretty much. Hall, you're an art historian. Can you talk a little bit about how digital art can change the landscape for good?
Yes, absolutely. So I run an organization called Less Than Half, which is dedicated to elevating the work of women artists, specifically through getting women to collect women artists. And I think looking at NFTs and the enormous and clear enthusiasm for them, whether wherever we are in that waxing and waning, I think that a couple very clear messages were sent by people who were buying NFTs. And I think as a person who works in the traditional art market, we can learn from those messages. The messages, I think, are very clear. We're art consumers, collectors, buyers, whatever you want to call them, want to see prices. Price transparency is essential. That they want community and to connect over art. And then finally, that they want the gatekeeping mechanisms that the traditional art market is so good at to disappear. So I think that even if you're not buying digital art, that the things that digital art is broadcasting to the world, the values that people have, should be taken up by the traditional art market. And I think that when walls come down, women benefit. So I'm definitely an advocate for that, and really, will and continue to educate women on how to navigate those things. And I think that digital art is definitely part of that future.
Layla, you are a digital artist. I mean, that's how you connect with people in the world, in the ether. How do you think you could be who you are today if you did not have that digital platform?
How it would be today?
Yeah. Well, and you're not crying, so that's good.
No, I'm not crying. Not crying. I would be like that. I think I would be so at peace.
Really?
No, but seriously, I do love art, and I think that, the arts comes in different ways, whether it's music, TV, and movies, and creating content, and I think art is for everybody. It means something different to everybody, but it unites at the same time, and it depends if it touches you. I can make a sketch or a YouTube video or content, and it has art to it. It has a meaning. I do usually relatable content, and it touches whoever has to touch, and it makes people not feel alone. And I think that art is something that has to touch you, whatever it is. And that's what I do. That's what I believe art is.
And Wendy, you are an artist too, but you also work in the museum world. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how museums can use that digital platform to connect with people in ways that they haven't in the past. Because before you would have to pay your admission, you'd go to the museum, you'd get your little button, the old days from the Met, if anybody remembers those little tin buttons. But now, you can just sit in your home and look at everything and look at it in ways that you couldn't see it before.
Well, exactly. You've just hit the nail on the head. So, as we said earlier, I'm president of the Guggenheim. For those of you who don't know, it's a museum many of you have asked me where it is. It's actually on the Upper East Side, on 5th Avenue and 88th. We have a constellation.
A small museum.
Yeah.
Right. You may want to talk about how it's architecturally very important too.
It's a beautiful museum, yeah. Actually, it's been voted a UNESCO building. We're a constellation of 4 museums. We have a Guggenheim in Venice, in Italy, and Bilbao, Spain, and Abu Dhabi. And I actually have my own arts foundation in South Africa. So in order to share, digital art has made it so much easier and so much cheaper. And of course, carbon footprint is much less. So, it's really a way to connect and so that we can share the platform. You can, as you say, you can sit in your home and you can watch an exhibition, you can listen to a lecture, or you can show digital art from the museums.
One of the really cool things about the digital art space is the way that artists can benefit in a way. Vincent van Gogh, in his lifetime, he didn't know that he was going to be this blockbuster artist whose paintings would be sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the digital space is different in terms of knowing where something came from and the artist being able to benefit from it along the way. What are your thoughts on the value of that?
I think that there is so much that an artist loses when the object leaves their studio. So even if you're not selling a digital work, if you're selling a physical painting or some other such thing, and there is some sort of smart contract written to bring revenue to artists with resale, I think that is just a phenomenal thing. Artists are what makes the industry. Without them, if there's one person, there's very few industries where you take out one player and the entire thing collapses.
It's true.
Yet artists are not given, they're given short shrift constantly. So to build that in, I think is fantastic. I was also talking to an artist who wasn't aware that her work was on the wall of a major museum, and I actually sent her a picture, texted her, telling her congratulations, and she had no idea. So I think that sort of thing would also be really beneficial, so that artists would have power over their work.
Seamus, just before we were talking and you were explaining the Doge and how it disrupted the art market. Could you just give a little knowledge to the people here?
Yeah, so I think that, so we essentially fractionalized it, which is a common thing in traditional art markets where you can own a share of a piece of art. But those things are very gated, and you have to be in the know, and you have to have there are a lot of walls around this garden. But with blockchain, it allowed and enabled a lot of people to participate in owning something that they love.
I'm curious, people who are here today, how many of you actually own or have a fractionalized piece of digital art? Raise your hands. Okay, so okay, now, how many of you have been to an art museum in the past month? How many have you bought a piece of art in the past year? Great, thank you.
I think that one of the key components, one of the key value proposals of blockchain is that it's composable, and by that I mean the financial layer plugs into other financial layers. So in the traditional art market, you are allowed to take a Van Gogh, and you are allowed to take a loan against it, or you are allowed to put it in an institution and fractionalize it. You're allowed to lend it. All of those financial constructs can be built into smart contracts. So if there is a piece of art that is valuable that's digital, you can now lend it. If it's a gaming asset, you can lend it to someone who wants to play with it. If it's a piece of art that's valuable, you can take a loan against it. If it is something that's enormously valuable, you can fractionalize it, and people can all have some participation in ownership. But it's all on this medium where everyone can participate equally, versus these walled gardens that are oftentimes, unless you live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, I'm not sure if you're participating in
How many people live on the Upper East Side?
I grew up.
Go ahead, Wendy, talk about it.
Yes, exactly.
Go ahead, Wendy, you can jump in. Say it.
No, I was just helping. Because, it can flow freely from one geography to the next in seconds.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we had a technological shift that was essentially the information age, and information moving at the speed of light. And I think that people need to begin getting more comfortable with capital and value moving at the speed of information. These things are now digitized, and ownership is capable on the digital sphere, and transferring money to an artist in Africa can be one-to-one immediately.
Layla, your digital platforms are vast. But what's different about being a digital artist is that you get to interact with your audience in an instant way that a painter, unless you're standing in the museum and watching everybody look at your painting, you're not getting that feedback. How does the feedback that you get from your audience, how does it shape you as an artist? What do you input and what do you output?
That's very difficult, because I feel like people influencers and people in the internet should not take everything so seriously. I'm serious. They shouldn't. If the people that know you like your stuff, then there you go. Because my family, my friends, my teachers, if they comment, those are the ones that I'm just like, oh, my work is great. If they don't like it, oh man, I should work on it. You know what I mean? And if you love it too, that's very important. So what would you write on your own stuff? If I had to comment on my stuff. And then there's people that love it, great. There's people that hate it, great. I don't care,
But you're also very honest about who you are as a person, and that can connect with a person, one of your audience, in a way that maybe a painting, they wouldn't be able to have that interaction with you. Do you find that inspiring? People who share their stories about how they were moved by you?
Yes, I do feel like that's amazing, and I'm very grateful for those who support me, and I support them, because I feel like if you help one person, that's enough.
Okay, there's art happening up here, so if you're talking, you should be quiet. Thank you.
I feel like if you just inspire one person, that's enough, and I like that they share, because honestly, once they start talking to me, once we're supporting each other, that for me is we're friends.
Yeah.
I never call them fans. I call them supporters, because I don't like calling it fans. I like to call them people that understand me, that I understand them. Yes, supporters, people that support me.
Wendy, as you're sitting here and listening, what's running through your head? You've been in the art world it's your career, it's your passion,
for many years. Well, the role of the museum is to have ideas, to get the ideas from curators and from artists, and then to show them, and so that the public has access to what we're showing in order to transmit change, or to have change. But what's very, very important is for that the museum, that we, the internal staff, we take on what we're showing, and that we buy into what we're doing. And I just want to say that what's terribly important is to have integrity in everything that you do. And with the art market, the art world, NFTs, the way going forward, we have to have integrity and honesty in the way that we, have to make our footsteps.
We only have one more minute, and this is a day to celebrate integrity. But I want to just quickly ask all of you, if you had to give advice to a young artist today, very fast, what would you tell them?
Oh dear. I would tell them that they don't have to go through the traditional routes. That there
Art school.
Exactly, that there are so many, more than ever. There's so many available paths to opportunity and success.
Jameis, what's your advice?
Well, a lot of the NFT artists that I know who have had a lot of success, they, to your point, love their supporters. They've found a lot of people who support them,
And they're female.
yes, and they embrace them and want to engage with their audience on a very visceral level. And so I think that, I'm not an artist, but what I've seen from artists where the most successful individuals are oftentimes the ones that engage with their community.
Lele's about to leave to get on a plane to Tokyo. What's your advice?
Can you repeat it again?
What's your advice to an artist starting out today?
I think why fit in when you're born to stand out, kind of stuff.
Nice.
I think you should be authentic. You should do whatever the hell you want. That's art. Don't copy anybody. Just be you. And I think that's your biggest power.
Amazing. Wendy?
And I would say, follow your passion and come visit us at the Guggenheim and check out what we do at A4 Foundation in South Africa.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you all.